Hello, everyone, and welcome to the VIDA podcast, where we help educate military veterans and their spouses on opportunities in Web3. Our plan is to host a series of industry leaders, many of whom are veterans or spouses themselves, so that we can learn about their journey down the crypto rabbit hole while understanding opportunities for transitioning veterans in the industry. I'm Chris Perkins, president of CoinFund. I'm a combat Marine veteran who spent 15 years on Wall Street before transitioning into the crypto space. And before we begin, I would like to thank our sponsor, Luca, who's dedicated their time and resources to make this podcast possible. For our 25th episode, we'll be speaking with U.S. Army veteran GracePfluger, who works in business development for the HBAR Foundation. Welcome, Grace.
Hey, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I can't believe this is our 25th episode. We found 25 folks who are veterans or related to veterans. So I'm super excited to speak to you today. So tell us about your background.
Yeah, I'm very honored to be lucky number 25. So looking forward to it. A little bit about me. As you mentioned, I'm in the U.S. Army, specifically the Army Reserves. I did ROTC in college, commissioned via ROTC, and I'm now a captain in the Army Reserve, still actively doing my drill weekends and trainings and such. Additionally, my full-time job, I work at the HBAR Foundation doing, my title is technically business development, but a number of different things, as we all do at smaller companies. And that's a snapshot.
Awesome. So you did your active duty service and you transitioned to the reserves. Tell us about your military experience.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I actually commissioned straight into the reserves out of university. So I did have the option to go active duty. At the time, I was a bit more interested in business opportunities on the civilian side. And so I figured it's the best way to get the best of both worlds, really, to have a civilian career, but then also be involved in the Army and still get that exposure and experience. Although I have not been active duty, I do have an opportunity to deploy. I'm actually slated to deploy right now to Djibouti, Africa next year.
Oh, wow. Will that be your first deployment?
It will be my first deployment, yes.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, I usually ask people, tell me about your transition, but you've been lucky enough to kind of do both, but that has challenges in its own right. I mean, how do you balance, being at this high flying startup that we'll talk about here in a second, and also, the challenges of, your reserve duty? How do you balance that?
It's interesting because both worlds don't understand the other, right? So when I graduated college, just polar opposites in every way. So when I graduated college, I was initially in software sales. So I started out as a BDR, doing B2B software sales in the Salesforce ecosystem. And so pretty similar experience there, right? Just in general, working in tech. There's great benefits. Everyone's really all about work-life balance. However, they don't fully understand the military, don't know what I do. So when I say I need to go do 2 weeks of training and something, they're like, okay, well, we're not pleased with that because you're a salesperson and we don't want you to miss time, but legally, we have to allow you to do that. So it is challenging. I like to say that I live a double life. I feel like when I put on my uniform and I go to my weekends or I go to trainings, I essentially am a little bit of a different person, right? The culture in the military, totally different than that of, let's just say, a crypto conference or event. But I think that the practices and the lessons you learn in military training is so valuable in every aspect of life that it really transfers into personal life, business, I mean, you name it. So my ROTC experience, as well as the leaders and mentors that I have in the military, completely bleed together into this crazy Web3 world in some weird way.
So how did you get into this crazy Web3 world?
Like I said, I started out in software sales. And so I think from that experience, I learned about how enterprises make change with efficiencies and what drives change in an organization. And then from there, I decided to go into technical training sales. So I worked for a company called Pluralsight on the services side, where we were developing packages, once again, for companies to be up-leveling their developers for some sort of change. Basically, the most common one would be on-prem to cloud. So essentially seeing companies migrate to AWS. And with that, I started to become more comfortable with developer languages and sort of understanding back-end infrastructure. So a little bit of a weird route in, but I had some friends that were investors in the space, and I decided to make the jump into sales at a DeFi project on Ethereum. And so that was when I entered in January of 2021.
Got it. So tell us about that project, and then tell us about your glide path to Hedera.
Great question. It's a funny relationship. So I joined Ichi, and they are really cool project. Ichi means one in Japanese. The founder implemented Hedera while working at IBM. And while I was there, we were working on concentrated liquidity Uniswap v3 vaults, essentially. Their smart contracts are able to gain very high yield along with his sort of stablecoin product. So very cool team. And I also managed the investors while I was there. We had some really awesome investors that I spoke to on a regular basis to update them on what we were doing. One of those happened to be the co-founder of the HBAR Foundation, and kind of got recruited over to HBAR in that in that way. But we actually are still collaborating with the Ichi folks from the Hedera side. So yeah, happy with the switch up, and Hedera is also a great organization to be a part of.
Awesome, Captain. Like, tell us about Hedera. What is it? What does it do?
We're generally known as more of an enterprise organization, right? Well, I'll get into the political kind of thoughts on Hedera and decentralization in a little bit, but at a base, I like to say that Hedera is the same thing as a blockchain, but we are reaching consensus in a different manner. So we actually have a big milestone today. Hedera passed 25 billion transactions today.
25 billion.
25 billion, yes.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited, and that's really driven by those enterprise institutions that we have been fostering those relationships for years now, right? So it's cool to see a lot of that come to fruition, as well as other institutions feeling comfortable. I think what I love most about Hedera is that we can be seen as a bit of a safe haven for institutions to get involved in blockchain and Web3 in this world where people have a lot of trouble trusting the environment, right? So hopefully I answered the question of what is Hedera. At a base, third generation distributed ledger. It's a hash graph, not a blockchain, but that we like to, that's just a detail, but it's just a different data structure, more efficient and more scalable.
So if you're an enterprise, why do you choose Hedera over like an Ethereum per se?
Good question. The biggest reason is the fees. So gas fees are fixed at 0.0001 denominated in USD. So that is one of the biggest value propositions for enterprise to be able to properly calculate what their gas fees will be, along with our carbon efficiency. So we have incredible inroads in the ESG space. Probably the biggest entity that's driving our transactions today would be a group that is measuring their carbon emissions on our distributed ledger.
Understood. Can you talk us through some additional applications that are on your distributed ledger, like any particular sectors or activity that you want to highlight?
Yeah, so I am most excited about Hedera's RWA world right now. So we have Aberdeen, who recently joined our governing council. Aberdeen is the largest fund out of the UK. They have $500 billion AUM, and they've already begun tokenizing their portfolio on Hedera. So that's just a very exciting use case in my opinion. Some others that I think are worth mentioning are banks that we're partnered with and that are on our governing council. And actually, before I do so, do you want me to explain the governing council, Chris?
Yeah, I think people would enjoy that.
Okay, so it's important to how Hedera was structured again with our launch, and this can be controversial, and so I think it's important to highlight. So the governing council on Hedera, they are a number of different large enterprises, right? Google, IBM, Boeing, as well as Dell and Aberdeen. More recently joined, and we have some banks on there as well. So they are the nodes that drive our, or rather bring transactions to finality. So they run our consensus nodes as well as have an active use case on Hedera. And so that group, they're very involved in the network. They're very involved in, really significant use cases. Some banks that I actually think are really worth highlighting that are on the governing council are Standard Bank and Shinhan Bank. So Standard Bank is one of the largest banks in Africa. They did a first proof of concept for stablecoins on Hedera a couple of years ago. And so this narrative for Hedera around non-USD currency stablecoins, I think is also very exciting right now. Shinhan Bank is one of the oldest banks in South Korea. I think they're the second largest as well. And they both are, building stablecoins on Hedera, in addition to the biggest Taiwanese financial institution. All of these just completed a pilot recently using our stablecoin studio. So non-USD stablecoin, in their fiat currency. And the significance of this is it enabled real-time settlement and real-time FX and extremely better efficiency.
Got it. So they back that stable coin in their custodian, and they issue that stable coin in their local currency. It's pretty cool. We haven't seen much of that. Like I watch the space closely. I used to run an FX business on Wall Street, and it's a $7.5 trillion a day business. Like it's humongous, right? And like right now, if you read the research, 99.3% of it is in US dollars. So I just don't think it's going to last. So it's really exciting that people are building there. So you're in BD. It sounds like you're working very closely with enterprises and institutions to onboard them. Can you tell us about your day to day and your role and what it's like to be in business development?
Yeah, definitely. So, although I'm bringing up our enterprise use cases because I think those are names that people can recognize, some mass adoption use cases that can get people to grasp the significance. However, my role, I actually run the crypto economy fund at the HBAR Foundation. And so what that means is I'm much more involved on the DeFi and technical infrastructure required in order to make economic behavior possible. So I am, like I said, I wear a number of different hats. I manage our, grant applicants that come in. I process grants for, infrastructure partners, and then I manage the grantee relationship, right? So our portfolio companies, we'll call them. But I manage that relationship all the way through to ensure that they're meeting our KPIs, see how their performance is, think about innovative partnerships or ways that we can improve their product. And what else? I also work with our developer team and our product team to potentially make updates to the actual repository in order to facilitate some partnerships or relationships that we're trying to create. Hedera is EVM. I don't think I mentioned that before. We are EVM compatible, and so that EVM equivalence has been a big part of my job, basically being able to speak to the EVM world. So I don't manage any of our enterprise relationships.
Yeah, can you explain what EVM means for the listeners?
Yeah, Ethereum virtual machine.
It's kind of like compatible, right? If that's maybe the best way to say it. It's compatible with blockchains that are Ethereum based, something like an Avalanche, Ethereum, etc. Maybe that's the best way to say it.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to go all the way back and try to explain, when Ethereum was first launched. But yes, I would say that as a blockchain, as someone who works for a blockchain, I can say that interoperability and the ability to provide and derive value to other blockchains is going to be extremely important, right? No financial entity, no person is going to want to be on one chain. We want to be able to talk to different networks. And I think that the way that, Ethereum being EVM compatible is very important, just again, to speak the same language, I guess is the best way that I can say it. Yeah. I mean, so Solidity is our coding language, but we want to be able to be partnered with the same EVM infrastructure that everyone is used to and sees. And that's for ease of enterprise adoption as well as for ease of individual retail adoption.
Yeah, I think a lot of people could really benefit from understanding the difference between Hedera and then the HBAR Foundation. And could you explain that a little bit? Because I think they bump up against this too, whether it's like Uniswap Labs versus Uniswap, or this foundation versus this blockchain. Can you walk through the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. So I want to say all, but I won't say all. We'll say most blockchain companies have a foundation tied to them. Wish I knew the history of when this started or why, but from a legal perspective, we have to be a different entity, right, from the Hedera organization. And we were created to, I guess, partnerships / venture arm, right, to deploy capital in the form of a grant. Sometimes we do some venture stuff, but for the most part, we're a traditional foundation giving grants. And it was, it's designed to, I want to say, fuel builders, fuel development. And then there's also grants that are tied to specific KPIs and metrics on Hedera. So the HBAR Foundation, we are not a VC necessarily, but you could say that we are deploying grants with our ROI being the impact on the Hedera network. So we want to see volume, we want to see adoption, we want to see usage of the Hedera network. And so we're fueling like applications and really awesome teams that are building on Hedera, basically. So Hedera, we actually have 3 different orgs. And again, this is very common in blockchain companies to have this set up. So we have the Hedera org, and we also have something called Swirlds Labs, which is more of the product owner. So they have the developers and product team and marketing, actually. And then Hedera organization is the token issuer. So we're all separate for legal reasons. Hopefully that makes sense.
Have you funded any veteran projects yet? Or if not, what should veterans do to apply?
Yes, veterans can absolutely apply. I would prioritize their application at hbarfoundation.org. You can click apply and go through the process. I have networked with a few from the VIDA Discord and had some calls. It didn't make, whatever it was, didn't fully make sense for Hedera. Again, the one qualifying factor for receiving a grant is that you have to actually be building on Hedera, and sometimes that fits and sometimes it doesn't.
Are there certain verticals that you tend to like or invest in? Are you looking for DeFi protocols, or what are you looking for specifically?
Mm-hmm. I think we have some helpful blogs on the HBAR Foundation that best describes this, but we have 4 different teams at the foundation, and we're very focused on our strategies in each fund. So one of those would be the sustainability fund. They are focused on, like I mentioned earlier, carbon emissions, measuring carbon emissions, a lot of really cool stuff. I'm in a little bit of a different world in crypto economy, but our sustainability fund is awesome. Then we also have a fintech and payments fund. So they, I think, are really leading the way in our stablecoin studio strategy. And so they've partnered with commercial real estate companies to tokenize their portfolio and so on. And then we also have a consumer engagement and metaverse fund. So they are really looking more at the retail use cases. They partnered with a project called Zoop. The founders and creators of OnlyFans decided to create a celebrity trading card platform called Zoop. They partnered with Karate Combat, basically creating like a DAO for the fans of Karate Combat. If anyone's interested in sports, then that's kind of like a fighting club, I think. And then finally, the Crypto Economy Fund, like I mentioned, more so feel helping support our basic infrastructure, like wallets, DeFi, the necessary stuff we need, like bridges and oracles and things.
Awesome. So what advice would you give to any military veterans or spouses that are transitioning and want to get into the space?
Yeah. It is a wonderful question. So I actually have a personal passion in transitioning veterans. I think I took a college class called Military Communications, and for some reason it was all about mainly about veterans transitioning. The two things that you lose veterans when they get out of the military is it's loss of community and loss of structure, right? If I could think, I don't think I could think of an industry that has a stronger community, a stronger sense of belonging for veterans. I think it feels like maybe a natural transition to move to Web3 because it's a bit like a cult. that was
Well,
my
now you're not
joke when
even in the
I,
Marine Corps, so like you have no
yeah,
imagine what it's like for
yeah.
us Marines.
Hmm. Yeah, you guys are particularly close, a lot smaller group. You need that pride in where you are. And I think that's what it does for me, at least. Like I said, during the pandemic, especially, I made my transition during the pandemic, right? Working from home, doing software sales. I was like, what am I doing? And then jumping into the crazy world of Web3, I was like, wow, I feel camaraderie, I feel community, I feel like I belong. It's super fun, just the brightest people. I love the non-judgment, and I think that's another aspect that ties into the military in a weird way. People don't realize that it actually is such a diverse community in the military, right? People come from all walks of life, socioeconomic backgrounds, like color, whatever, you name it. And I feel like the same applies to crypto. Like you cannot judge a book by its cover. I mean, whatever they look like, and if they're smart and they have a good idea, you listen, And I think the same rule somehow applies in the military.
Total couldn't agree with you more. Um, are you guys hiring at all at HBAR Foundation or Hedera?
So among our three organizations, I'm sure that we are. I apologize that I'm not up to speed with those opportunities, but I will happily help anyone who reaches out and says that they're interested in a job and connect them to our HR team. I'm unfamiliar with the hiring situation right now, but I think the HBAR Foundation specifically, I'm not sure that we are hiring at the moment.
Got it. And when you look across the Web3 landscape, what excites you about the future? I mean, we've gone through some crazy times. It feels like those times are turning more positive now. We'll
Yeah.
see. But what excites you about the future?
I am excited about user experience, uh, better PR. I think if my friends can understand that blockchain isn't bad or crypto or Web3 isn't bad, that would be great. And if I could just, same way I Venmo my friends money, if I can, do the same in a better user experience with crypto, that would be amazing. I think on a personal and feminine angle, I think that there's so much that can be done with both AI and Web3 things. The shopping experience can be improved. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, but when I shop, it's a really antiquated experience. I feel like I'm sending my friends, screenshots of what's in my cart, and I'm trying to see, what I should get, what I shouldn't get. I'm trying to get my friends' advice. And so I think there's just a ton that can be improved upon in the user experience. Another tangent I'll go on is like the reward mechanism, right? So I don't feel like I'm properly incentivized when I'm shopping. We have some phone number or account like everywhere we go, and is it really getting me points? Like, am I really getting rewards when I'm giving my phone number to all these places? It doesn't feel like I am. So I'm excited for that to be enhanced. I don't know, just the day-to-day experience and how can I actually benefit from crypto and earning rewards with my favorite vendors, interact better with platforms, and maybe even interact better with my friends or AI, an AI shopping assistant or something. So user experience, I'll leave it at that.
How can people connect with you, Grace?
I am available on Twitter as well as LinkedIn. Um, those would probably be the best social media platforms.
And what's your Twitter handle?
It is at your Graceless.
Awesome, you're graceless. Well, thanks a lot, Captain. Really, really awesome discussion today. Really informative insights, and we're really lucky to have a veteran like you. Well, actually, you're not even a veteran; you're a reservist like you in the space. So, thank you so much for coming on. I also wanted to thank our sponsor, Luca. Without them, it wouldn't be possible to do these. And for those of you who are interested in learning more about VIDA, please connect with us on LinkedIn or Twitter. And if you have ideas or suggestions about anyone else we should bring on, please let me know. Always reach out to me on Twitter at PerkinsCR97. Thanks again, Grace.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. Really appreciate it.